Hi, I'm Jeff Walter, and welcome back to the Training Impact Podcast. My guest today is Kevin Trost. Kevin is the co founder and president of Adminify AI, the all in one AI communication platform built to make your business ridiculously easy to do business with. I'm looking forward to this conversation about how AI is changing those business processes, the technology layer for those business processes with the channel partners. And so, welcome to the program, Kevin.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be on. This is the training impact podcast. Is a big deal for me. The biggest deal of my weeks.
Well, I appreciate that. Uh, so, one of the reasons one of the reasons I want to talk to you is, when we look at channel enablement and most of that external training that our listeners do is all about channel enablement. And it means you got the right people and then you got the right process and you have the right technology layer. And with AI, what what that technology layer is capable of doing is changing. And that's one of the reasons I want to have you on the show is so our listeners can get a better understanding of what's possible there. So that being said, why don't you give everybody a quick back, let us understand how you got where you're at and what Adminify is and what you guys are trying to do and how AI is changing. Well, I'm packing a lot. Let's just start with how'd you end up as co-founder and president of Adminify and what does Adminify actually do?
Love it, love it. So yeah, my name's Kevin Trost. I've been in my background. I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I'm married. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah now, and have four daughters. My oldest is 19, so I'm entering that stage, and my youngest is 12. So it's a fun world to be in. My background has mainly been I'm probably an entrepreneur is how most people would describe me, but I've mainly been in a customer acquisition most of my life, and probably focused on scaling and implementing sales platforms and systems that companies could go then and scale quickly and things. And so the way Adminify has been around officially for about 3 years now, which in our world makes us one of the pioneers in a weird way, but one of the dinosaurs. But no, the way that we got into it, we had done some acquisition for companies like Amazon and Uber and DoorDash and things like that, which parts of those companies are definitely considered technology companies, in my opinion. And so they would build this amazing technology, and then we would go and help them acquire the customers to use that technology. Usually, most people in technology thinks if you build it, they will come. And usually, if you build it, a couple people might find you, but you still have to go acquire the customers and get people to want to use your technology or your systems or your products. And so we were coming from that world. The way that I got into AI is probably like a lot of people. I was just I don't know if worried is the word I would use, but just unsure about how that was going to affect my world, my business, my future, and I wanted to make sure that I was not fighting against it, but learning how to fight with it because I figured it would be it would be game changing, and I just wanted to educate myself, and so before it was our main focus, we actually started of all things an artificial turf company. We had never done anything in artificial turf, but there was a little bit of a government subsidy there, and we wanted to pick something that wasn't had some complexity to it. And within about 6 months, we were able to automate pretty much the entire customer journey from A to Z, other than the physical install of that turf, using AI, from getting referrals, capturing every lead, being, really good service to our current customer base while never missing an opportunity on the other side, all the way down to the review management piece of it at the end of a transaction with hopefully a happy customer. And so when we realized kind of like, oh wow, this can do so much more than answer uh, write an essay for my daughter in her English class or whatever. We had a decision to make with the teacher's permission, I'm sure. At least that's what I'm told as a father, right? So I think we just had a decision to make of, do we want to create a platform that helps businesses learn how to implement this, or do we go compete with businesses that are going to, eventually figure out how to use AI, but we feel like we already are cracking the case on that. And so we decided to go the route of enabling businesses to utilize AI in their business. That's kind of where it started. And 3 years later, but we're it's changing every day. It's changing fast, and it's fun being a part of it.
So, so help me understand. So you started this turf business. Do you still have the turf business by any chance?
No, we actually got rid of
You
that.
never-
It was a beautiful proof of concept. Even though one person could kind of run it from an office other than the physical install, it was still took a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, the one, though, I was just talking to somebody about that. The actually on the prior episode I just recorded. We were talking about scaling your franchise network. And do you use a franchise consultant or a sales organization or area manager? Or do you do it organically? And to your point, it was well, it's a good question, but the one thing you got to remember if you're going to do it organically is it takes time and energy, and no matter who you are, no matter how much backing you got, you can't buy extra hours in a day,
Yeah,
right? So where do you want to put your focus? So it sounds like you guys went like, okay, it's a nice piece of business, but we want to focus our energies over here, and we only have so many hours in the day. That's pretty cool. So
yeah.
you did that and you built the technology and you're like, hey, rather than build out a great turf company and continue to grow, we got this piece of technology that we think can really change the game for a lot of players. And so help me understand how that works.
Yeah.
I got I understand the concept, but you know, and like how does it all start? Where does the prospect come in? Somebody, do they hit the website or they, are going out and cold calling them or it sounds good, but how does that AI, how do you find that needle in the haystack?
Yeah. No, I actually love that question. I love how you answered it because AI is really big. And honestly, even for me, it's almost intimidating in a way because it is so big. And you're right. Like, where do you even start? And it's hard to even sometimes articulate exactly like because it's so big. It's like, well, I don't know. Do you just start with one little piece? You try to find a platform that can do everything. Do I build it in house? Do I outsource it? Like where all of us are fairly naive because it's such a new thing and it's moving so fast. And then and all those things. So yeah, maybe I'll give kind of a little bit of like the first couple months of Adminify, and that'll probably answer a lot of those questions. AI makes sense. I still haven't talked to a business owner where at least a piece of AI wouldn't make their business more efficient or make their customer journey more enjoyable or scalable or those things. And so to figure out who your ICP or your target customer is when you're going to be an AI company providing helping to automate the customer journey, it's really easy to get distracted by oh, this is where it makes sense in this industry because I could probably sit down and tell you the 100 ways each industry that I can think of where it would make sense in that industry, right? And so, but one place where it made a lot of sense was in a home service company. So let's take a HVAC company, for instance,
Hmm.
right? And so one thing that all HVAC companies probably would agree on is when uh, they have some customers that are probably repeating and things, but there's probably a large portion of their business which is somebody has a problem with it's 22 degrees outside and their furnace just went out and they need to get warm. And so
Yep.
what most people do is they go and they call the first person that pops up and if they answer it, that company is probably getting the business because it's somewhat of an emergency or it's not a top priority and they just need to get something done. And so if you don't engage with that client, they're probably calling the next person on the list until somebody finally engages with them. And so I call that speed to lead. Who can get there the fastest? The other side of that is companies will pay for leads from like an Angie's List, or I mean, there's a whole bunch of companies that provide those things, but usually you're getting that lead while other companies are also getting that lead. You're getting a shot to earn that business. But it's staggered the percentage of clients that go with whoever reached out first is ridiculously high. And so speed to lead in my opinion was like a very obvious place for AI to make a lot of sense for a business. Never miss an opportunity, engage with any customer within 30 seconds. And so we got sucked into the home service world pretty and not just HVAC. I mean, any home service company has a similar experience probably with some of those pain points. And so the first I would say for us the first place that we focus on is just making sure you're never missing an opportunity, and that's not just with a new potential customer, but that's with consisting clients or your existing clientele. Um, a certain percentage of every call every business gets definitely requires some human interaction and human touch. And I think I would usually argue that human interaction is always the best. You know, when somebody's calling your company, they would love to talk to you,
Right.
but the next best thing is them being engaged within 30 seconds, especially if they have a quick question or something, right? And so that's kind of where where I like to start with every company that I talk to is we'll kind of look at the whole customer journey from A to Z dealing with the customer and just find the places in their specific business where it makes sense to it makes sense to you know automate this part, and this is a place where we're definitely going to need to have human interaction. So let's get it to a place, let's give it to that human as efficiently as possible with a summary of where they need to pick up where the AI left off. Let's get it on their schedule, whatever it is, so that person is using their time most effectively. There's a lot of employees, even at my company, that I need them to be on 20 conversations. For the one time in that 20 conversations, I really need them to be on that conversation. Right? But if I can whittle that down to where they're only in that call where they need to be on that conversation, I just became a lot more efficient with that employee's time. Yeah, so we just kind of go through and map out. We really try to understand your customer. We really try to understand the journey that they go through. And then there are certain places where AI makes a lot of sense. And then there's certain places where you would be crazy to try to use AI right now to fix that problem or to deal with that issue or things. And so we just identify those things. And then most companies use some type of a CRM.
Right.
Or a property management system, or depending on the industry, there might be a different term that you use, but a place where you house your customers. You probably handle some type of billing and things out of there and things like that. And so usually what we do is we integrate in with whoever that provider is, and then what AI can do for your business is usually it really opens the door to what it can do for your business. In fact, we have some businesses that really do have AI handling all of their customer interaction at this point. Again, that's not I don't think that's our goal, and that's not what I would suggest, but I think it can do it if you're integrated in where you need to be, and if it can handle all the tasks that it normally does, you can get it in a place where it's good enough to handle the majority of your interactions with your current customers and potential ones if that's what you wanted to do with it.
So if I hear you, I think most of us out there understand the generative AI stuff, right? We've all at this point gotten onto chat or one of those other, you know, platforms out there and said, "Hey, like you said, write me an essay on, or tell me about this, or tell me about that." And so I think that a lot of people, they kind of understand how I used to I used to Google and then try and find something that already exists, and now when I have a question, I just ask and I get this generative thing, right? And I think other folks, so I think most folks understand that. I think a lot of folks have also encountered chatbots out there, intelligent chatbots that like, hey, I ask it a question and it gives me an answer. And we probably at this point of most of us have kind of interacted with AI not knowing that we were. But on the journey side, help me understand how does the AI take you through a journey? Like I get the chatbot and I get the generative, but the go using that example of you're an HVAC company. Let's say I'm franchisor for I've got the HVAC. I've got HVAC franchisees, and and they're coming into my website and saying, hey, I need help, and I'm in Des Moines, and so okay, that's we got a location there. How does it work its way through the
How does it
process?
how does it navigate through? Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it's a big question, right? So,
Yeah.
what I would say, there's a version of AI that is almost it's more of I wouldn't consider it AI almost, but it's still being considered AI where there's kind of it feels like robotic answers to robot. So we've probably all dealt with even a chatbot, for instance, where it feels very robotic, and then we've dealt with ones that seem like human like, and you're like, oh man, this is probably AI. This is actually pretty good. And then there's some that like really understand the goals of the company and the what they would love to do with any potential customer and how they get there. Like, for instance, if I'm an HVAC company, I would say, hey, anyone who's not a customer, my goal is to get them on a, get them on a schedule and get a down payment or whatever that is, right? And so if you have like a really good AI assistant or system that really understands your business, then how it gets to that end point might be different. The first 10 customers you look like the process of how they got there might be different on all 10, but it knew its goal was to get that customer on a schedule. I'll give you an example that
Yeah.
will, that the examples are kind of fun. This one isn't about anyone falling in love with our AI. This is a customer that had it was for a mattress company. And
Okay.
so we got a call from the owner on a Monday morning. He's like, "Hey, have you guys seen what's going on this thread? This is and so what had happened is he had a warehouse that holds all the mattresses, right? And then he had an ad that would go out, and he was getting like hundreds of inquiries a day, and he was selling only a couple mattresses a day. So it was just taking all of his bandwidth to weed through the 99 things that didn't happen to find that one customer. He knew he was missing customers, and so we had we built it out for him. And so on a Monday morning he called us and he goes, hey, he goes, let's go look at this conversation. So Friday night at like 1, like 11 at night or 1 in the morning or whatever it was, someone reached out about the ad and it engaged with that customer, pulled the mattress, identified what they were looking for, was able to see that it was in the inventory in that warehouse, and said, hey, at 1 o'clock on Monday, you can come and pick that up. I'll meet you at the warehouse, right? So Monday morning came and everything was good. It actually even collected payment for the
Uh-huh.
mattress, so it was like a done deal. They just need to come pick up the mattress. Monday morning at about 9 o'clock, this customer called and she's like, hey, I'm actually a single woman. I just realized I don't know if I feel comfortable meeting you at the warehouse being a single woman. So I'm going to have to cancel my appointment. And the AI actually empathetically was like, hey, I totally understand. You're in a we're in a business park that has other businesses there, so it's definitely not secluded. Now, again, we didn't train it to answer this specific way, but it gets
Wow.
crazy. Wait till you hear the end of this. It was like, but we're in a business park with these other businesses who have customers coming in and out. So it definitely you won't feel alone. Would that be okay? She didn't respond, right? And so 15 minutes later, it respects said, hey, I'm actually also married. I'd be happy to bring my wife so you're not the only female there if that would make you feel more comfortable.
The AI said this?
The AI said this. And again, no response. So then 15 minutes later, it said, and again, we didn't even train it necessarily. None of this was specifically, hey, if this happens, then do this. It just knew its goal was to get that customer to come at 1 o'clock to pick up the mattress. So 15 minutes later, it reached back out and it said, hey, I just noticed here are our 13 friends that we have in common on Facebook. You might want to just reach out to one of them just to make sure that I'm a credible person and that it's a safe environment to pick up the mattress. Maybe that would help. And like 5 minutes later, she responded back. She's like, hey, that thank you for so much for like looking into that for me. I actually did reach out to that person. I'll meet you there at 1. I feel comfortable now. And he was
How
like,
the AI does not have a wife to bring.
no, the AI was speaking on behalf of the owner who was married.
Oh,
Yeah, and the
okay,
owner, yeah,
okay,
so she thought she was speaking to whoever she was
okay,
picking up, and so yeah, sorry, I probably should have specified that.
okay.
That would have
All right.
sounded even
Okay. So,
crazier, but
in this scenario, the AI is acting on almost like
yeah, yeah, more of an assistant, and then this guy he ran. I mean, he was the only employee, and so he had it representing like
yeah, right.
him or whatever, or
But
it
you could
may
have it
be
represent the salesperson or anybody else, and then
yeah.
and then because of that, I'm just my what I know about AI. So it's saying you're representing Jeff. Jeff, and configuring it, it's like, here's my social accounts, here's my Facebook, my Instagram, because I want it to know me, right? Here's my LinkedIn, and obviously the warehouse is at this address, blah, blah, blah. And you can easily identify, and then, huh.
So
And
yeah,
then you
so
didn't train it on any of that.
yeah, so the way that we look
Interesting.
at AI is AI is such a big thing that a lot of companies, and I'm not faulting them for this at all, and this might be the way that we should have done it too. But most AI companies do. Hey, we're a great voice AI solution, and we'll answer your missed calls, or we do. We're a chatbot, and it's great. So the way that we look at it is, most especially small business owners, they're usually pretty good about interacting with their customers one or two ways. It might be, I'm really good at picking up my phone, but I only check my social media once every 2 days. Or, hey, I'm great on social media. I'm really good at when somebody fills out a form fill, but I'm just busy. I'm on jobs and I can't answer my phone, so it might be 4 hours till I get back. But so what we do is we take any way that a customer could reach out to a business, whether it's through the website, email, social media, Google. There's probably 10 or 15 ways that a customer could interact with your business. And again, unless you've told it to be the first line of defense, if you're not interacting with that customer within 30 seconds, then the AI usually picks it up and at least identifies, what is it that you're reaching out about? Is this a quick fix? Can I help you? Or do I need to connect you with the person who you need to? And at least they're engaged with. But all of that comes into a unified inbox and then they communicate back how it came out. And so most of our customers are, we have a lot of customers that are watching 10 different conversations going on from their laptop, and two might be on social media, two might be on the website at the same time. And there might be three calls that, their first line of defense didn't pick up, then it picked up, whether it's through SMS or through voice. But no matter what, all of those customers are looking for some type of interaction if they're reaching out. And so it all comes to one place and then it goes back the way that it came in. But it's a really easy way to see all of the customer interactions that are going on in your company at at any given time. And then of course it stores that and you have access to that data and that's a whole nother part of the conversation probably. But that's the first thing, is just making sure that any way somebody tries to reach out to your business, that you're engaging with them in I always say 30 seconds, but it can be whatever people want it to be. Uh, and then as far as one thing I would touch on, and you didn't ask, but I know this is an interesting question, is um, my suggestion to everyone is don't try to trick customers. Don't
Right.
try to. There's no reason you have to. In fact, when I realize I'm talking to a bot or an assistant or AI or anything, if they didn't disclose it, it actually like frustrates me as a customer. It really does. Like
Right.
I don't like that experience either. And so my advice to almost every company we work with is, especially with voice, where I feel like it's still pretty obvious at some point in a conversation that you're talking to AI. I like just be upfront with customers, and if you approach it that way, I think they're a lot more open to dealing with AI than getting through it halfway, realizing it's AI, and then feeling like they got tricked or whatever. And so, especially with voice, and as voice gets better, I think it's even more important to be upfront with your customers that, hey, this is the voice, oh, this is the assistant. But I also think there's creative ways to do that. We work with one company that they have like kind of a pirate theme for their. I don't want to use any specific names, but
That's okay.
this company has kind of a pirate theme, and so and when we kind of gave that suggestion, they were like, "Oh, well, that kind of feels tacky. We don't think our customers would like it." We're like, "Well, let's try this." And so when you call this company, the AI, they have the AI actually as the first line of defense because the customers love it so much, and they say, "Our matey, this is whatever the name is. I'm the AI assistant and the first mate, and I can help you with all your questions." But they gave it like a theme and a personality, but it made people love to engage with it rather than trying to trick them or
Right.
feeling like it's robotic or whatever. And so there's just some creative ways people are using it. But I do think being transparent that it is AI is best practice for sure.
Yeah. So then, going back to the example you were running, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm an assistant, and our owner has, his wife can be there, or he knows she got 12, common links on Facebook, and then the customer's like, okay, let me contact Mary or Joe, and they're like, oh yeah, Jeff's a good guy, he'll be good. and I go to church with his wife, and like, or whatever the connection is,
Yeah,
right?
whatever it was, it made her feel comfortable. But I think the point of that
That's
story that
6 degrees of separation of Kevin
yeah.
Bacon.
And it's not like the owner of that mattress company was like, "Hey, please feel free to use,
Right,
shared contacts or whatever." But what he did say is the assistant knew him and his business well enough, and he had enough faith in it that he gave it enough flexibility to say, "Hey, the goal is to get that customer to pick up the mattress at 1 o'clock. I want you to get me there. And if you need to re-engage with that customer, I mean, he obviously it was specifically 15 minutes later, 15 minutes later.
right.
So he had set it up in a way that he didn't want to be too aggressive, but he definitely didn't want to just hope the customer shows up. Like he wanted to stay persistent. I call it pleasantly persistent instead of pushy, but definitely didn't feel pushy and it was coming, but it was definitely going to just keep troubleshooting ways for this customer to feel comfortable enough to come. Maybe if it ran out of ideas, I mean, the fact that it got there blew my mind. But if it ran out of ideas, maybe it would have been like, well, hey, would it be okay if we gave you a call to find a time or find a situation that would work? And at that point, maybe it would have texted the owner of the company and said, hey, here's the summary of the conversation. Here's what's going on. You need to reach out to this customer, right? The fact that it can get to that point, it's just really cool. Like, and that
Yeah,
to me is it's a great version. It's a great example of like it knew where it was trying to go and it found a way to get there. It'll probably never do it that exact same way again because that was a unique situation with that unique customer. But when you use AI as more than just like answer tree or whatever, like it can do some pretty amazing things if you can trust it and if you've built it in a way that you feel comfortable with it. And so it's kind of like any employee, the more time you put into it, the more probably freedom you're going to give it to do the things that will help your business. And you can get it to a point where you can really trust it.
yeah. There's a couple of things that you said that are really wild, and it's really interesting because we've added an AI assistant into our product. So it's a learning management system. So clients can sit there and go, here's a body of knowledge, and then their learners can ask questions about it. It's a chatbot type thing.
Yeah.
But we also added it to our support site. I like what you about your pirate thing. One of our staff brings his dog in. Norm, he's a little quirky, and we made the assistant Norm, and we got Norm's face there and put a little personality on it, and same thing. So it's just, and I agree with you. It's that whole you want to be authentic, and if people don't mind interact, and people like Norm. It's cute little corgi.
You gave their experience a personality where when I feel like I'm talking to AI, I feel like that's what's missing is the personality, the heart, the connection, right? And so it's a way to I think it's almost necessary.
Yeah,
A way to still give like that interaction that they're probably looking for that might be memorable, that it's different than what they've had without them getting frustrated,
yeah. We
so
we even we gave Norm his own page, and he walks around the office, and that's how he's picking up all this knowledge.
I love that actually.
And it's so far been so good. But the other thing that I think is really interesting, and so that and we had some internal discussions like, should we give it this personality, and we did, or should we use a humanoid, or should we use, should we make it be one of our support staff, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, but then it's but then to your point, it's like, well, I don't want it to, I just didn't want it to, I didn't want people to think they were talking to one of our support specialists, our product specialists, if they weren't actually talking to one of our product specialists, right? Because the last thing you want to do is ha, you know, and the saying, "Hey, Jill, remember when you said blah blah blah?" And Jill's like, "I never said that."
Yeah. No, yeah, I think, yeah, you almost feel if you're trying to, yeah, I just feel like it's going to come back and bite you either way. So but I also think just like having it be a boring version of AI, I don't think that's a good customer experience either. So I just
Yeah, I
encourage
agree.
all the listeners, like, creative with how you're implementing your AI. I think it's important. I think it's worth being creative, and it's going to help you be more efficient. You may as well use it to your advantage. That gives you an advantage as, oh man, that company that company, their AI, he talks like he talks like, or be a complete robot. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
can even
yeah.
lean more of that into that. I mean, there's a million ways you could do it. Uh, but I think giving it a person, being creative around your AI is, I think, is the next thing that will set every. We're also at the kind of, I won't call it the bleeding edge anymore, but probably the cutting edge of companies figuring out how they're going to implement AI. But I do think the next step of AI, one of the things will be, how do you get yourself to set yourself apart when everyone else is, answering within 30 seconds, and following up, and being able to reschedule and take payments, and that, once everyone can do all those things, now you get to figure out how do you set yourself apart again, using AI. And I think that's where the creativity, I love the dog idea. Like I love that. In fact, I might use that, and I will give you, I
Thank
promise
you.
I'll give you the credit for
Thank you.
it, but I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Okay,
And
you cannot use Norm without his owner's
no,
permission.
I'm gonna call him Born.
No, but but the other fascinating thing, and just for the listeners out there, um, there's a couple things you said that one could be a little disturbing, but one could, but I think you got to understand how you train these things. You know, the reason that the AI was able to do what you said in terms of the Facebook and my wife and was because you trained it on that individual, and you said, here's their social accounts. You can use those to do whatever you need to do. And then, so, people might be like, oh, that's creepy. It's going out and getting all this information about me. Well, no, you tell it to do that. You tell it, use this, leverage all this information about me. In that case, the information about that individual to try and make a connection to overcome any objections. And then the fascinating thing is how, and this is what I just find fascinating about the AI is it understood the objection of or the concern, I should say, of the customer, right? And that it was a safety thing. The AI was able to understand that. And then it devised a series of strategies to try and allay those concerns, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like, which is just fascinating. Hey, we're in this place, it's well lit, lots of businesses, not dark alley, and then, you know, oh, well, our president, bring his wife, and, you have another woman there. Oh, we've got 12, like, it came up with a bunch of different strategies, which is just amazing.
I know.
Blows my
Honestly,
mind.
the social media one, I was like, I wish I told it to do that. I think that's a great idea. I wouldn't have thought of that probably, right?
Yeah.
But it was kind of its third attempt of making that customer feel comfortable, or I call it just overcoming objections, right? There was an objection, there was something there holding it back. And I also, there's a lot of AI that I've played with that I can't. It's not going to be able to do that. I think the word AI is not all AI is created equal at all. And but I think a lot of it is what you go back to is like that owner had taken the time to where it understood its job, and it understood the company, and it understood that owner in a way where it felt like it could go there, right? I would just say, let's just take ChatGPT. Every one of us have ChatGPT. Everyone listening to this has ChatGPT on our phone, but every one of us knows someone who does everything with their ChatGPT, and it knows everything about their life, and it is making all of their advertising materials, and it's doing all this, and you're like, how are you using yours so different than mine that you're getting that much more value out of it than I am? And the crazy thing is most of us, I come back to an employee. So when most of us hire an employee, we'll be willing to train that employee for up to a month sometimes to get that employee to a place where they can really do the job that we're asking them to do, interact with the customers in the way. We'll continue to coach them, we'll continue to fine tune them before they're just so good that we don't have to take time with that employee anymore. Like most of us have training departments or training platforms or things like that, and we develop them. The funny thing in AI that I notice is, if it's not doing what you wanted it to do in like 8 minutes, then you're ready to abandon it. So what that story also tells me is that owner has taken the time to really like let it be a part of his business, let it be interact with the customers. Again, he was letting it not only check inventory, identify the need, check inventory, make suggestions, close the sale and collect payment and set it on a calendar, right? So he's already comfortable doing that. He also was comfortable with letting it overcome objections to a point where it got that person to pick up their mattress too. He probably spent a lot of time with his assistant, and he probably really did spend a week or two really fine tuning it. And when it, when it answered a certain way, he didn't just get frustrated and turn it off and never use AI again. He just said, "Oh, I can see why you said that because I told you to do this in this scenario, but now let me add this caveat because that's probably going to come up again." And all of a sudden, 99% of the time, it's doing what he wants it to do, because he just spent some time with it. And so I do think that I don't think there's any company in the world that is just going to out of the box, or any employee that you hire is just going to show up the first day, and you're never going to have to spend time with it and get it to, just from a culture standpoint of your company, or the way that you interact with your customers, or the things, or the way you hold a hard line, or things like that. Yeah, just take the time to like actually train it like you would an employee. The nice thing is with AI, once you train it, that thing will work for you the rest of your life, and it's going to
Right.
be working 24/7. And so the time you put into an employee who might leave you tomorrow, well, if you can justify that, justify putting in time in training your AI in a way where you're really comfortable with it.
Well, it's interesting that how you phrase that, because, and I think you're spot on from our use of AI within our company. Is I think that we all from our from the past, you would get a piece of technology or piece of information technology, right? A website or a system, and it's very deterministic, right? It's I configure it to be operate, and our LMS, same thing, right? It's like you configure it a certain way, and if you push this button, this thing happens. If you push that button, this other thing happens. Every time, every time. And if it's not right the first time, it's wrong, right? And so we have this mindset of when I launch it, it's right. And if it's not right, it's a bug. And that's from decades and decades of building these deterministic systems. And I like the way you said it's well, this is more like having an assistant, and they're not going to get it right out of the box. They'll get it. If you're lucky, you'll spend a little time kind of giving the goal directions and saying, well, here's our process and here's our goals. And the beautiful thing is you can do that in natural language. You don't have to go into all these tables and configure all this stuff. You're able to say, well, the goal is to do this, and here are the 5 steps, and every 15 minutes do this, and like. But then, like a manager with a new hire, you gotta, look over its shoulder and make sure it's
Yeah,
doing it right.
listen to a couple calls, make sure it's interact, and make sure that new hires speaking to, and you might be like, hey, you sound uninterested. Like, you just sound uninterested. You got to be a little more engaged. Are you distracted when you're on these calls? What's going, like, we're willing to do that with a new employee. Just I would just say have a little patience and fight through it a little bit. And the return on your investment of time with your AI is probably, I don't, I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, once you get it there, then it's there. You don't have to keep rehiring. It's not going to leave you for a competitor tomorrow. You don't ever have to worry about that once you get it there. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I like where that went, because I haven't talked about that much, but I think that is exactly how I feel about it.
Well, and
So
I think that example was like spot on in terms of, going back to scale, your channel partners and scaling. And, one of the things that, and focusing on, say, franchisors, is you're trying to scale up your channel, right? You're trying to add franchisees, or maybe you're a software company like us, and you're trying to scale up your bar network, or you're trying to scale up your reseller network, and you want to provide those processes, right? How do you help? How do you help those franchisees scale up? And like your examples, like with this mattress, be a perfect example. I was a mattress company and I had franchises all over the place, and I'm trying to add to them. It changes what you can do. You've got a process. Case, it's the conversion process, sales process. How do I take that lead and turn them into a paid customer, right? And and the power of what you just did, or what you can do there, is you can train those assistants. And now it's not just a person at a mattress store. It's that same assistant provide that same type of assistance for every single one of your locations. And you can sit there and go, oh, I just brought on a new location. Add this owner's profile to that AI assistant. Let them know that now Jeff just got the Ann Arbor location, and here's Jeff's. And Jeff, be best if you give us your LinkedIn, your this, your that, and the other thing, right? So the assistant can kind of get a sense of who you are and how you can help and do these things. And then you maintain that brand consistency, and it allows you to scale without having that handful of people back at headquarters that have all that stuff in here. It gets it out there in a scalable manner. It's really, which is very different than having here's the CRM we're all using to track things, right? And here's the process and it's been configured this way to help you as a salesperson close leads, which you still need, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but it becomes a layer that it gives all of your channel partners these digital assistants that can really drive business forward. It's a really different way of looking at things. Really
Yeah.
different way.
And I would also say, let's go down this rabbit hole for a second of just scaling franchises. I think is a beautiful place. So when we started in this, we got sucked into one of the biggest franchise. One of our first clients was like the one of the biggest franchise groups in the U.S. And so we had to kind of rebuild our platform in a way that was meant for multi-level, multi-location organizations or franchises is a great point, right? And the whole thing is they wanted to be able to, from corporate or from headquarters, make changes that would be, 300 brand wide, if or location wide. They want to be able to like gather data from those. They also wanted to cross sell to each other. They wanted to be able to refer business, and they also had these four other lanes of, different industries, but they wanted to be able to like cross reference them and things. And so we built it in a way that is built for franchises. I think that's probably what sets us apart. One of the things that sets us apart the most. But if I'm a franchise, probably one of my main goals is to grow, to scale, right? And so there's a couple different sides of that. The first thing is most franchise groups have a tech stack. Like that's not a new term in franchising, right? And so, but I like to put myself in the position of a potential franchise owner, right? And I'm weighing out my options. And if I come to you and I'm looking at what you're offering as a franchise group and deciding if I want that compared to, these other four opportunities that I'm looking at, what I'm really trying to do is how do I'm minimizing my risk as many places as I can to make sure that I make a decision that I'm not going to regret 3 years later. I wish I went with those guys, right? And so, in the past, the technology was like, well, this is the CRM we use, and this is the review management platform we're on, and these are the tools that we have for you that are kind of universal. But with AI, what I'm starting to see groups doing that is making feeling on just a game changing on a different level using AI is if you can come to me and instead of having a tech package, you're like, here's our tech platform. And 80% of the things that I thought I was going to have to do as a business owner, or if I went with this other group, I would have to do those things as a business owner. Let's say it's 50% of the things. If 80% of the things are already built out, already proven, and I don't have to actually do them unless I want to, and I can customize that to my specific location. Well, now what I've done is I've kind of combined people with processes with technology because
Right.
it's actually performing the tasks. And there's a lot of
Right.
businesses where when you're hiring, you're like, okay, the only reason I can't build 20 of these this month is because I would have to find 20 managers or 20 operators or whoever it is that can do these 15 different things, and I can find people that are good at the physical labor part of that or with the customer interaction part of that, but finding somebody who can do all those things, that's usually a limiting factor for franchise groups. And then usually whether they're profitable or not comes down to if that manager was able to run it efficiently or not anyway, right? Knowing that that's a limiting factor, if I'm a franchise group trying to grow, yeah, you could put more money into marketing all day long. And in my opinion, if you're not using AI to help in the hiring and courting of potential franchise owners, pretty soon you'll be left behind there too. But in my opinion, put time and effort into your tech stack, make it so attractive to be a franchise owner for your company rather than the four other things, franchise opportunities that they're looking at, because worst case scenario, 60% of the day to day and of what we're doing, we already have that covered for you. And here's the data. If you just have it run status quo, like, you can get it to that place. And to me, if I'm a franchise owner trying to set myself apart and to grow and scale, is number one, it's going to give me visibility and more data. Number two, it's going to minimize their risk to a place where the only reason they would go with a competitor is maybe the competitor did a better job with their branding or something like that,
Yeah.
or things. But if those things are all the same, but I know that there's not just technology, but like systems and processes in place that are utilizing that technology, where I don't have to worry about my reputation management. I don't have to worry about, or like my Google reviews or my Yelp
Right.
reviews. If I don't have to worry about figuring out a call center, if I don't have to worry about rescheduling my appointments, if I don't have to worry, I mean, if all those things are taken care of for me, I'm probably going to take it for granted that I never had to learn how to do a lot of that stuff. But I think that that's the future of scaling and franchising while using AI. I think the tech stack, but the AI inside of that is what is actually going to be attractive to potential franchise owners, and those are the groups that are going to like have massive growth. Is the ones who can figure out, how do I minimize the risk down to, no, just follow. I mean, that's what potential franchise owners want, is the playbook of how to be successful. Otherwise, they go do it on their own, right? And so, if you not only do you have the brand and like the processes and things, but now you have the technology that does a lot of the work for them. They don't have to actually go even get trained on those things. Maybe the break even point is 60% faster because you cut out the learning curve of 80% of what they used to have to do. I think that's what's going to set franchise groups apart in the future, as far as scaling goes.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you just said, because it triggered a whole bunch of firework thoughts in my head. When you think of that people process technology, traditionally it's like, well, these people are executing this process using this technology, right? And if we use the CRM, for example, right, it's like it's been configured in a certain way for certain workloads. And therefore, I, as a salesperson, lead comes in and there's some automation, right? Like maybe, 6 automated emails go out in this deterministic way. It's been configured to do that.
Drip campaign, whatever that is. Yeah.
But there are automations, some of the processes are automated, and based on that, it changes the status from X to Y and blah, blah, blah. And as a salesperson, this is what I do. Like, come in the morning, I do this, this, this. I check that, that, that. I'm interacting with folks and doing the part that's not automated, right? And everybody is familiar with that term tech stack, right? It's like, oh, I'm going with this franchisor. They're using this CRM. They're using this reputation management software. They're using this, depending POS system. They're using this on the supply management side. Depending on the nature of who they are, right?
Mhm.
And as you were talking, I was like, it's interesting because what you're introducing, and all of that is like, here's the process, here's the pieces of the process that are automated, here's the pieces and it's sitting on this technology. And it's almost like within this tech stack, you're introducing a new component, which is not the automations and the configuration and all that, but almost going to what we were talking about earlier, is that digital assistant. Because you and I can have two different, can be, say, having competing franchise, we're competing franchisors, right? We're in the marketplace and maybe we're doing that HVAC repair, right? And I've got one, and we're both trying to land a new franchise. We're both looking at the Chicagoland area, trying to sign somebody up, and there's somebody there going, hey, do I go with Kevin or Jeff? You know, and we might have the identical tech stack. We're using the same CRM, the same everything, but you configured a digital assistant or a set of digital assistants that can automate a bunch of processes. And I've configured a bunch of digital assistants. And now the question is, everything's looking equal, but what do your digital assistants look like versus my digital assistants? And then you sit there and go, oh, well, yours Yours can take the thing, you know, process the order, schedule the time, and do the follow-ups, and mine is just a chatbot answering questions. And those are two different types of digital assistants. Well, one of the things I didn't think about until we had this conversation is like starting to evaluate the tech stack, not just on the tools that happen to be in there, but also the digital these AI assistants that you're starting to build, and how you train your digital assistants is going to be different than how I train mine. Just like how you configure your CRM is a little different than how I configured mine. But it's a much bigger thing because it's a force multiplier. It's having this digital assistant go do a bunch of stuff for you, which is different than traditional.
Yeah, and a way to illustrate what you're saying would be,
That's cool.
so if a potential, yeah, so if this potential, they're looking at Jeff's company and my company, and they everything's been the same up to this point, and then they say, well, hey, do you use AI? And Jeff, you would say yes. Oh yes, we use AI, and I would say yes, we use AI. The answer to that question, that okay, cool, we both use AI. Well, the next question would be like, oh cool, what do you use AI for? And if you answered it with, well, I use AI for, we have a chat widget. It understands the ins and outs of our business. It's gonna, here's our slogan. It's gonna throw that in there every once in a while, and it's great. And it's gonna,
Any questions they have.
yeah, and you know what? Like you could probably, yeah. Let's say that's what it is. And then if I was like, oh yeah, we use the AI, you're never going to have to worry about any of your reputation management or getting reviews. We have that taken care of. We actually have all of your invoicing and billing, your past dues, and your collection department taken care of for you. You will never miss an opportunity. And we actually have an integration with, and you start going through what your AI is already set up, what your group of assistants is going to do. Well, you're both using AI, but you're both using it on a completely different level. There's still the traditional tech stack probably behind what the AI conversation is. So I agree. I think it's like an additional conversation. But the other thing that I would say, and I think this is maybe is the most important thing for anyone listening, is eventually that is what that conversation will be. But right now, if you were offering anything like that, your competitors probably aren't yet. And so that really is a place where, if the goal is to be looking for competitive advantages and how do I scale faster, if a company came and asked me to consult for them, I want to, I have this franchise model. We have 22, different franchise owners. I want to get it to 100 by the end of the next year, and I don't know if it's possible, but I wouldn't talk about marketing at all. I would talk about, well, let's make this a no-brainer for anyone wanting to run a franchise, to where you can show them by them using the AI that you've already built for them, that it's going to be hard for them not to be profitable. And then if they're good at these other things, that's where they can set themselves apart, rather than having to do all of the things that the AI does, plus be good at those other things. A lot of times, as business owners, especially new franchise owners, they never get to the things that they all know. Every customer on their birthday, I'm going to personally go to their house and tell them I appreciate them being a customer. I call them those are the good intentions of business. Most business owners know, like, oh yeah, I used to have good intentions. Now I'm just trying to like not fall behind, or it's usually pretty overwhelming. And I feel like there are businesses that utilize AI enough to where they can still actually do some of their good intentions. And I
Right.
and I think if you get there, then you're probably on the right track, because and again, that's what my goal is never to replace an employee. If that's the goal of the people I'm talking to, that's on them, but that's not the goal of my company. But I want to automate the things that can be, I would like to automate the things that can be automated, so these companies can focus on the things that really could set them apart, their customer. No, the other thing I was gonna say is, think about going into like a dentist office and how busy those, the receptionist is usually so busy, and half the time they're pleasant, half the time they're really not, because they're just overwhelmed trying to deal with insurances. What if you were able to automate all the things on the back end, and that receptionist's job is just to make, well, you might wait the exact same amount of time to see the dentist, but if their job was to make sure just focus on you and have a good conversation with you, or answer questions you might have, and just engage it with the customers and giving you a good experience while you waited. What if that's all that you did for your business? You would be the most popular dentist in your city. You just would be, And so I think about it that way of, don't, it doesn't mean you need to replace everyone, and people aren't important. It's just let people be important where they can make a difference in your business, and let AI handle the things and probably give a better experience than a lot of times human can with the things that AI can do.
Well, I mean, and again, when I go back to franchising and scaling, those digital assistants, those AI assistants, it's a force multiplier, and it allows for I mean, one of the biggest challenges in franchising, because it's the brand on the door, right? Is how do you bring on all these independent businesses and deliver consistent services to your customers, and that includes the sales process, right?
Yeah.
And
Or even just basic customer interaction. There's some franchises that are famous for the way they greet a customer, that are the way that they wish them a fantastic day as they're leaving, different verbiage that they use that sets culture and expectation and things like. There's a lot of that, even in the little details that you could probably take advantage of there. Yeah.
yeah, it just it's a and that's why I want to have this conversation, which is it's been a really insightful conversation. So thank you, to start thinking of it as, as part of that tech stack. What are those assistants? They're actually going to do a lot of the execute. It's like having a built-in workforce,
Yeah.
and that's what allows you to scale. And it's not just about, well, we automated the drip campaign that goes out, but actually in, customer interactions and being able to do it in a very creative way. And if you getting back to the whole thing we talked about earlier about, if you can really take those assistants and take them to the next level, they can problem solve, and they can problem solve a lot of the day-to-day problems. And it doesn't eliminate the need for human interaction, but what it does is it allows the people involved to handle the exceptions, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And takes that automation of the typical day-to-day objections and processes out, while having a great customer experience. And that creates that consistency and scalability, and without having to add 100 people to headquarters.
Yeah. Now, if you think about the whole point of a tech stack in a franchise opportunity, it's attractive to the franchise because it creates consistency. There's the training is going to be a lot easier if
Right.
you're using our CRM. There's a lot of things there, but then it's attractive to a potential franchisor because, hey, we have our stuff together. This isn't just a brand. We're giving you technology that's proven that we will teach you how to do it, and it minimizes your risk of this venture not working out and you losing your money, by joining us. I think we got to start looking at your AI for, workforce the same way of it creates. There's a lot of benefits on the corporate side, or on the enterprise side, but there are giant benefits to the people looking at the opportunities, and really we just got to remember the goal of people looking to start their own business, and especially if they're first time, they're just trying to minimize the risk that this isn't going to work. Like, that's their
Yeah, yeah,
biggest
yeah.
fear, and that's why tech stacks are so cool, and like, look at us, like, look at our tech stack, like, that sounds so innovative. Really, if you can come and you can ease the mind of, like, oh, and what used to take us 2 months of training, we actually can do in 3 days now. Most of the training is teaching you how to interact with your assistants, and see where they're housing the information. We're having them do the work for you. Here's, nobody wants to focus on accounts receivables. Like, nobody likes that. But if your assistant handles 80% of it and sends you the ones where you need to actually deal with, I can handle two of those calls a day if I need to, but I don't want to do 10 of them. That's not why I wanted to own a business. And if I can have my assistant handle 98% of them, gosh, like that, thank you. That's a part of my job I knew I was gonna have to deal with, but thank you for taking that away from me. And if you can be more, you're gonna be more consistent than me, because you can just tell them to reach out. You can be as persistent as you want to be. I can turn up the heat. If you're 2 months late, you're gonna get a daily text from my company. but I don't have the bandwidth to text you daily. But if I can just do that, there's a lot of peace of mind that comes with that. And then to me, you've minimized my risk in ways that these other companies haven't been able to. I'm going to go with you, even, and then this is the most important part, even if your brand isn't as well known. It's not fun competing with brands, and scaling against brands with giant when they have the name,
Right,
and
right.
it's very expensive to compete that way. I would much rather compete in a way where, like, hey, you're right. There's advantages to going with that company because their name is this. But let me show you why you won't fail if you come with our brand. And I promise you, our brand is going to be known for its customer service, and we will quickly gain brand recognition from that, rather than just paying for commercials and Super Bowls or whoever you're competing against. That it's just not realistic to compete on a branding level with.
Hey, so you brought up AR and that. One of the themes that's been consistent as we've talked about scaling franchises or just bringing on new franchisees is, you know, a lot of folks have not managed P&Ls before. They're used to their personal finances, and most of us manage our personal finances based on a balance in our checkbook, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a very different. And managing a P&L is a very different way of looking at it. And I've talked to a number of franchisors, and it's that whole, you know, training the new franchisees, especially owner operators, on how to manage how to manage your financials and manage the business using your financials. And I and when you mentioned the ARs, like, has that been something you've seen folks? We've talked a lot about the customer interaction, but there's also that, like, uh, digital assistant, that AI assistant CFO. Like, have you seen that yet, or is that coming down the
Yeah.
line or something like that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about internally what we've done. I mean, we definitely have made some integrations into, usually most owner operators, unless there is a tech stack, or a proven way that they are trained on how to do it, and usually there probably is, but a lot of times I see they usually start on Excel, then they go to a free version of QuickBooks, then they go to a paid version of QuickBooks, and then they might find something more industry specific, or something like that. And so, yeah, AI can definitely integrate into a lot of those systems, and do a lot of the work for you. I mean, currently we have assistants that, collect one-time payments, collect upfront payments, collect overdue balances, act as a collection department for companies and things like that. And there's different levels of reporting it back to, other softwares that they're using and things like that. And then the analytics from the data on the financial side is being used all over the place in AI, I think. And so there's definitely ways that it's being used. To say, like, no, that's my virtual CFO, it handles all of my things financial. You probably want to, most businesses want to keep an eye on that, probably a little
Yeah,
closer than just trusting something. But at the same time, I mean, all those things that I said right there, that's the majority of the finance department for a lot of franchises at the place where they're at, right? And so, yeah, but I think that is a place where it will just continue to get better. But I think the data that's being pulled from it, being able to populate things in different places, not just one CRM, is a big place where, going with a company that knows how to integrate quickly with whoever you're using, if they're not already integrated, would be, I mean, that would definitely be a prerequisite for me if that was important.
right.
If they're going to get permission to be able to do that, or if that's always going to be manual for me, or things like that. But no, I think that is, uh, yeah. I mean, we have some clients that are as close to that as I've seen. Most owners are okay spending some time there, but there's definitely things inside of it that are monotonous, or take a lot of time with data entry, or are just not fun conversations, or things like that. And depending on how big your staff is, if that's all falling on the owner, that's a heavy piece of the business. And I would definitely be using AI to at least assist me in things inside of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It just goes to, I'm looking at that whole finding the right owner, giving them the tools to identify customers, close customers, service
Check
customers,
balances.
and
Yeah, yeah.
then understand the finances. Do all of the back end finances stuff and reporting back to the franchisor for, because they got to get their books done and all that kind of stuff. I think it's, yeah. I think the customer interaction, they're so digital now that I think that's a good, you know, where the first, low lying hanging fruit is, because a lot of that's already digital communications. But it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that before as you know, going down to the, I'm just, projecting into the future. So
Yeah,
very
no, no, no.
cool. So
I think, yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Some of the things that you just kind of see coming, like, oh, eventually we'll probably be able to do that, and then some of that just depends on the willingness of the softwares that are being used to house that information, or
right.
things are going to be to let other companies, not having to get too creative to integrate in with them and things like that. So, but
Yeah.
that's probably a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. I like the collections aspect of it. That's really cool.
Oh,
That's
I think I
super cool.
again, I think it's always important to talk about ROI, and pretty much every customer I talk about, I'm like, hey, obviously new customers that you missed that, you know, are now paying customers that got booked on the calendar. That's an easy way to, you know, it's hard to know, well, what was it worth? It answered 900 calls in just in after hours and over the weekends. It was over 900 calls. Like, it's kind of, sometimes it's hard to put an ROI to things, right? Especially if it's just saving you time but not directly generating income and things. No, there's definitely the collections piece is like one of my favorite places to be like, well, just in your past dues, if it can even do this, then this probably paid for itself 10 times over, type of a
Yeah.
thing. So it's a great, it's a great ROI. I mean, think about what people pay collections agencies alone. Like, I mean, by the time you're there, you've kind of probably written it off a little bit in your mind, or on your tax. You take it to collection agency, and then when they finally do collect the money, the agencies get to keep most of it. You know what I mean? Like, or at least a large percentage of
A
it.
big chunk of it.
Yeah, which never feels good either. And I am not. I love collections agencies. I think they're needed, and I think a lot of them are using AI more than probably people think and realize too, in doing it. So why not have a line of defense before you go that route where you get to keep the money? I think that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, it's been a great conversation. Have we missed anything? Is there anything else out there that you want to communicate to folks? I feel like we've really covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we've gone in a lot of
Yeah.
directions. This has been
Yeah.
fun, but no, I would just say, if people are listening to your podcast, they're probably have at least an appetite for what you're talking about, and so that we're probably not just talking to a bunch of people that are deathly afraid of AI or implementing technology. But I would just say my biggest, from a bird's eye view is, learn how to work with AI, not against it. Like, you don't want to work against AI. Like, everyone is going to either take advantage of it or have to battle against it. So just learn how to, in your industry and what you're working on, figure out how to work with it, and you're going to be glad you did. And I've never met anyone that we've worked with that has said, "Ah, I wish we would have waited longer to save all this time," or "I wish we would have waited longer to compete with our clients that do interact with all their customers," or whatever, right? And so I don't think that there's ever a perfect time. And really, like, the longer you're in business, the heavier lift will be when you finally start incorporating AI into it. So there's the best time to do it, I think, is wherever you're at right now. It's not going to get easier. And if you're starting out, start out with, like, if it, I will never start a business again. I started the call by saying I'm more of an entrepreneur, than anything else, but I would never consider starting a business again until I had looked at every place where I could utilize AI in my business. And so, I just encourage everyone looking to start something, or who currently has something. You probably owe it to your customers and to your business and to your employees to know where you can use AI to become more efficient. And every you'll make more money. The customers have a better experience, and your employees will love you unless they feel like you're trying to replace them. So, um, you know, maybe be upfront with the ones that you're trying to replace with it, I guess. But give people peace of mind that it's a tool that is going to make their job easier and better, not they're competing against it. That's the only other thing we didn't talk about, is getting your employees to buy into it when they're afraid it's going to replace them. But that's, again, I think that's more, you're a leader and a business owner.
Yeah.
You either like learn how to navigate that through that, or you don't, I guess.
Well, with any change, it's always a little bit of both, right? I mean, and there's, what I think at the end of the day is it's a huge productivity improvement tool, and thinking of it as an assistant, and it's going to lead to huge improvements. The question is, whether or not, if you have so many folks on your staff and you get huge productivity improvements, can you leverage them to, can you still need everybody within the organization? Are you growing fast enough to absorb them with the productivity improvements or not? And, as past technological revolutions have shown, it's a little bit of both,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
the
little bit of
reality
both.
of it.
That's the reality. But, you're also, you aren't going to stop it either, because the people that have embraced and adapted are going to have a leg up, because at the end of the day, it allows you to do things better, faster, cheaper. And, and Kevin, if folks want to get a hold of you or your organization to learn more, it sounds like you guys doing some really cool stuff. How would they get a hold of you or admit?
Yeah, it's a great question. First off, I actually like the technology. I'm not the technology guy. I love business. I love business and scaling. But I really do. I love sitting down with groups or companies and just showing them, oh, well, that's where I would automate it. And like I actually like love that conversation, whether we end up working with them or not. I enjoy it. And so if there's any groups that are wanting to explore it, I'm more than happy to sit down and do that. And the best way to reach out to us is just adminify. So like admin, right? Adminify.ai is our website. You can get a contact with us there. They can reach out to me directly, or find us on social media and things. But yeah, my email, I'll just give it to you right now, and they're welcome to email me too at kevin.trost at adminify.ai. And if they want to reach out directly, that's fine, that's great. um, I think that every business should just at least be aware of what other businesses in their industry are doing, and know where they could. It's up to them if they want to do it or not, but know the places where other companies they're competing with are automating things, because at some point it's going to feel like an uneven playing field if you're not using it at all, probably.
Okay, and we'll have the adminify.ai link in the show notes, so
Yeah,
you
I
can go
appreciate
there
it.
and click through. Kevin, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and it was very educational. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it too, and to all the listeners. This is a great platform. I'm honored to be on it, Jeff. But no,
Thank
I
you,
think you're
Kevin.
providing a lot of value for your friends slash followers, listeners, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's really cool when you explain to me what it is and your goal with it. I actually thought it was awesome, and I was very happy to come on, and hopefully something I said helped on some level or another.
Well, I know I learned a lot, so thank you, and to everybody out there, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. Have a good day.